Ever notice how the person who barely speaks during an argument somehow ends up in control? It's not magic, it's not luck, it's strategy. And if you're not careful, you'll keep falling into the trap of thinking louder means stronger. But the truth is, those who talk the least often win the most. Here's the harsh reality. The more you try to explain yourself, the more power you hand over. People aren't always looking for truth. They're looking for control. The more you react, the more they twist your words, poke holes in your logic, and pull you into a fight you never needed to be in. But if you stay still, if you stay calm, you become unpredictable, unshakable, unreachable. Imagine an argument like a fire. Every word you throw in is more oxygen. The flames rise, the chaos grows. But the moment you stop feeding it, it dies. Silence, when used right, becomes your armor, your weapon, your move. Think of a chess master. He doesn't panic. He doesn't talk trash. He watches. He waits. He lets the other side make mistakes while he saves his energy for one precise strike. That's you, when you stop trying to win with words and start winning with control. Let them shout. Let them stumble over themselves. Let them drown in their own noise. Because the moment you stop playing their game, you start controlling the board. So how do you do that? How do you flip the power without raising your voice? How do you walk out of the conversation winning without even saying much? Stay with me. What you're about to learn might just make you untouchable. If this lesson opened your eyes to the real power of silence and self-control, imagine what applying it could do for your life. This isn't just advice, it's a mindset shift. So if you're ready to win more by saying less, like subscribe and share this with someone who needs to hear it. And in the comments, tell me, have you ever stayed silent and ended up winning? Let's learn from each other. Number 1, never match their chaos. Stay calm and let them expose themselves. What if staying calm is the one move that wins the whole battle? Most people think arguing is about having the sharpest words, the strongest facts, or the loudest voice. But the truth? It's about presence, not volume. When someone starts raising their voice, throwing accusations, or getting emotional, they're not winning, they're unraveling. And the one who keeps their cool? They're the one quietly taking the crown. Think about a storm. It's loud, violent, impossible to ignore. But what happens after? Stillness. Calm always returns, and it's the calm that lasts. In an argument, you can either be the storm or you can outlast it. The one who doesn't flinch, who doesn't respond with fire, that's the person others start watching, listening to, and ultimately respecting. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's the entire game right there. You don't need to control them. You need to control you. There was a man I once knew. Let's call him James. In a work meeting, he was attacked unfairly by a furious colleague. This guy was loud, rude, pointing fingers, trying everything to get James to react. But James didn't take the bait. No eye-rolling, no smirking, no raised voice. Just calm listening. And when he finally spoke, it was brief, clear, and powerful. Guess what? Everyone in the room shifted. Not because James argued better, but because he behaved better. The louder man looked unhinged. James looked like a leader. So here's the advice. Don't rush to respond. Pause. Lower your tone. Let them burn themselves out. The more you resist reacting, the more they expose their own lack of control. And you? You stay untouched, above the noise. Control isn't loud. Control is silent, still, and undeniable. Let them lose themselves. You Stay unshaken and watch how the room starts to shift in your favor. Number 2, don't defend yourself. Ask questions that make them doubt everything. What if asking one sharp question wins you the argument without saying much at all? Most people think they have to defend themselves in a debate. Someone throws an accusation or challenges your idea, and you rush to explain. You start justifying your every move, giving reasons, making excuses. But here's what you don't realize. The moment you start defending, you give away control. You're no longer leading the conversation. You're reacting, and reaction is weakness. What if, instead of defending yourself, you flipped the script? What if you made them do the explaining? Here's a quiet truth. A sharp question is more powerful than a loud defense. When someone tries to corner you with weak logic or assumptions, don't fight back. Ask something that makes them stop and think, something that exposes the cracks in their argument. Let their own words trap them. Most people argue without thinking things through. They talk in circles, hoping emotion will carry their point. But the moment they're forced to explain with clarity, they fall apart. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." And this is that strength. Cool, quiet, surgical. I knew a guy named Daniel who mastered this. In a meeting, a colleague claimed his project idea wouldn't work. Most people would have defended themselves right away, but not Daniel. He just asked, "What specifically makes you think it won't work?" The other guy hesitated, gave a small excuse. Daniel followed up, "Didn't we face the same issue in our last project?" And handled it. That was it. No yelling, no arguing, just questions. And within minutes, the other person had backed down. So next time someone challenges you, don't defend, don't explain. Ask, stay calm, guide the conversation, and let them defeat themselves. The smartest person in the room isn't the loudest. It's the one who asks the questions that leave others speechless. Number 3, when they push for a reaction, use silence to break their confidence. What if saying nothing is exactly what makes them break? People often think arguments are won by saying more facts, more comebacks, more firepower. But here's something most never realize until it's too late. Sometimes the strongest move is to say absolutely nothing. Silence, when used right, is not avoidance. It's a psychological strike. Think about it. When someone starts arguing with you, they expect a fight. They want resistance. They feed off your reactions. But when you give them none, when you sit there calm, focused, and unbothered, they start to spiral. They lose direction. They question themselves. That silence you gave them, it starts echoing in their mind, and that echo turns into doubt. Epictetus once said, "Let silence be your goal, except when speaking is more valuable." And that's the point. Not every word deserves a reply. Not every attack deserves a response. In fact, silence often hits harder than anything you could say. I remember a man named Alex, someone I knew personally. He was in a heated meeting where a colleague was attacking his ideas non-stop, trying to provoke him, trying to dominate the room. But Alex, he didn't react, he didn't argue, he didn't even flinch, he just listened. Not passively, but with quiet confidence. No eye-rolling, no sighs, just pure, steady silence. And something fascinating happened. The other man started to ramble. He repeated himself. He filled in the silence with more and more words, trying to convince himself as much as everyone else. By the time Alex spoke, he didn't even need to say much. The argument had already fallen apart. So here's your move. When someone challenges you, pause. Let the silence linger. Look them in the eye and wait. Because in that quiet space, their mind becomes their own worst enemy. They'll start to question everything, and while they unravel, you remain still, solid, and in control. That's how silence wins arguments, by making the other person feel every second of it. Number 4, disarm their ego. Agree with the truth, then shift the power. What if agreeing with them is the smartest way to win the whole argument? Most people think that to win an argument, you have to fight back against everything. Push, resist, reject. But here's the twist. They're expecting that. That's why it works against you. When you push back on every single point, you don't look strong. You look defensive. And the moment you start defending, you're no longer leading. Now imagine this. Someone makes a point, and instead of arguing, you say, "You're right about that." Instantly, the whole energy shifts. They stop attacking. They lean in. They listen. Because you just did something rare. You made them feel heard. But what they don't see coming is the redirection. That's the move. Acknowledge what's valid, then steer the conversation toward your truth. It's like a martial artist using the other person's momentum to shift the fight. No force, just flow. And suddenly, you're not in a battle, you're in control. Marcus Aurelius said, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." That means you don't have to crush the other person to win. You can be reasonable, open, but disciplined in your logic and your direction. That's real strength. I remember a woman, let's call her Sarah, who was in a meeting with a pushy co-worker. He kept pushing for a plan she didn't fully support. Instead of shutting it down, she said, "You make a great point about saving time. We do need more efficiency." Then, without skipping a beat, she added, "But I also worry we might lose quality." What if we blend both ideas? Just like that, the co-worker softened. The battle was over. It turned into teamwork. And the final plan. It leaned her way. Here's your takeaway. You don't always need to be right out loud. Be smart. Be strategic. Find the truth in what they're saying, then guide the rest. When you stop arguing and start redirecting, they stop seeing you as the enemy and start seeing you as the answer. If this message hit home, like this video, subscribe for more insights like this and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Have you ever walked away from a pointless argument or stayed calm while someone else lost control? Drop your story in the comments. I'd love to hear your experience. Number 5, let them ramble. Watch them trap themselves with their own words. What if the easiest way to win is letting them talk too much? Here's a secret most people never learn. In an argument, you don't always need to fight. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is stay quiet and let them defeat themselves. People who are emotional, defensive, or desperate to prove a point usually talk too much. And when they do, they start slipping. They exaggerate. They contradict themselves. They try so hard to sound right that they end up exposing everything that's wrong. It's like watching someone dig a hole, except they don't realize they're digging their own trap. And you? All you have to do is hand them the shovel. Zeno once said, "Better to trip with the feet than with the tongue." And that's exactly what happens when people speak without thinking. The more space you give them, the more likely they are to say something that doesn't add up. Let me tell you about a man I know. Let's call him Eric. He was sharing a new business idea, and someone jumped in trying to shoot it down. Instead of getting defensive, Eric just asked calm, simple questions. "Why do you think that? Can you explain that a bit more?" And then, boom, the other guy slipped. First he said the market was too small. Then, a few minutes later, He claimed it was too crowded. Eric didn't argue. He just smiled and asked, "So is it too small or too full of competition?" Because it can't be both. In that moment, the whole argument collapsed, without Eric raising his voice once. Here's how you master this. Don't interrupt. Don't rush to defend. Just listen. Focus on their words, not your response. And when the cracks show, gently point them out. Sometimes silence is the rope they'll use to tie themselves up. Let them talk. Let them twist. Then calmly show them what they just did. That's not just smart, it's unstoppable. Number 6. Don't take the emotional bait. Stay detached and starve their control. What if their anger is just a trap and your calm is the escape? Every emotional argument is a setup, a test, a trap. They poke, prod, and provoke, not because they're looking for truth, but because they want a reaction. And the moment you give it to them, you lose. You step into their world, on their terms, and suddenly the argument isn't about facts anymore. It's about control, their control. But here's the move most people miss. You don't have to react. You don't even have to play. And when you don't, you flip the game on them. You strip them of their power. Because now they're arguing with thin air while you're sitting in silence, unbothered, unshaken. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy, and that's your real win, not matching their energy, but rising above it." Don't meet anger with anger. Don't let sarcasm pull you into the mud. Instead, let your calm become their frustration. There's a guy I once knew, Kevin. In every meeting, his co-worker tried to set him off. Raised voice, sarcastic jabs, passive-aggressive comments in front of everyone. But Kevin never flinched. He didn't defend. He didn't attack. He answered only when necessary, and when he did, it was with calm, steady logic. No emotion, no bait taken. And slowly, that co-worker began to unravel. The louder he got, the more people noticed. The more he tried to make Kevin look bad, the worse he looked. Kevin didn't win with words, he won with control. And control is silent. So here's your move. When someone pushes your buttons, pause. Remind yourself, it's bait. Lower your voice. Stay neutral. Let them wear themselves out. Let them collapse under their own chaos. Because at the end of the day, the one who doesn't react always walks away with the real power. Let them drown in their own storm. You, stay dry, stay sharp, stay detached. That's how you win, without ever lifting a finger. Number 7. Stop over-explaining. Say it once and let the silence hit hard. What if saying less is the sharpest weapon you've got? In arguments, most people think the louder they talk or the more they explain, the more they'll be believed. But that's where they go wrong, because when your words are strong, you don't need many. In fact, the real power comes from knowing when to stop talking. Think of a sword. The sharper it is, the fewer swings it needs. Same with your words. A short, clear sentence, backed by calm confidence, can cut through a room louder than any rant ever could. But once you keep talking, once you start defending and repeating, you're not strengthening your case. You're giving them space to twist it, challenge it, and break it down. Too many words, and you hand them your power without even realizing. Epictetus said it best. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. You don't need to convince anyone with endless explanations. When your truth is solid, let it stand. Speak it, and leave it hanging in the air like a silent challenge. A man I know, let's call him Jason, once had a tense meeting with his boss. They disagreed over trying a new system. The boss pushed back, listing every reason why it might fail. Jason didn't argue. He simply said, "Let's do a 1-week trial. If it works, we keep it. If not, we go back. No risk." Then, silence. He didn't fill the air with more words. He didn't try to sell it. He just let the silence do the work. And it worked. The boss agreed, not because he was persuaded, but because there was nothing to push against. So, here's your power move. Say it, then stop. Let the silence make them uncomfortable. Let your calm confidence speak louder than their panic. Because when you talk less, you leave no weak spots, no confusion, no loose threads. You force them to face your point without distraction. The next time you feel the urge to over-explain, don't. Say what needs to be said and let them wrestle with the silence. That's how quiet confidence wins loud arguments. Every time. Number 8. Know when to exit. Walk away and leave them arguing with themselves. What if the smartest way to win is to walk away? Not every argument is worth your breath. Some people don't want clarity. They want control. They don't want truth. They want attention. And the more you try to reason with them, the deeper you sink into their trap. But here's the truth most people miss. You don't have to finish every fight. Sometimes the power move is to walk away without a word. There's a certain type of person who argues just to feel important. They twist logic, ignore facts, and pretend they're winning just because you're still talking to them. And the longer you engage, the more power you hand over. But silence, walking away, that's the one thing they can't handle. It starves their ego. It exposes their desperation. It leaves them arguing with no one. And that is how you win. Epictetus once said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." That's your warning. If someone believes they're always right, they're not listening, they're performing. And no truth you speak will ever reach them. So don't waste your energy. Save it for people who are actually open, not those addicted to being right. Let me tell you a story. A man I know, let's call him Ben, used to argue constantly with a co-worker who always needed the last word. Every day it was something, and every time Ben left the conversation drained. Until one day, Ben just looked at him, nodded, and said, "You might be right." Then he walked away. No defense, no comeback, just silence. And you know what happened? The co-worker was stunned. That argument never came back. Ben didn't win by proving a point. He won by ending the game. So here's your lesson. If it feels like a battle just for the sake of battling, leave. Protect your peace. Don't trade your energy for someone's attention. Sometimes the strongest voice is the one that chooses not to speak at all. Walk away and leave them echoing in the silence. And here's the truth to take with you. Sometimes power isn't in what you say, but in what you choose not to say. The strongest people don't fight every battle. They know when to speak, when to stay silent, and when to walk away. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. If this message hit home, like this video, subscribe for more insights like this, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Have you ever walked away from a pointless argument? Or stayed calm while someone else lost control? Drop your story in the comments. I'd love to hear your experience.